We are live, but before we get started, we want to make sure we have all of our platforms included for tonight's discussion. All right, and I see green check marks across the board. Welcoming everyone to another installment of the Orange and Blue View podcast. I am your host, Ron White. On that side of me, my co-host, you know him, you love him, Mr. Dylan Von Arts. Dylan, how are you doing today on this great Saturday? And I know we haven't talked, well, we've texted a little bit, but thoughts on the outcome of Super Bowl 59?
First of all, good to see you, Ron. As always, another Saturday, but I am absolutely ecstatic about it, man. Oh my God. I mean, for a lot of people who weren't invested, you got a lot of people you bring over to the Super Bowl party, not always invested in the game. Like, this is boring. This is terrible. Not for us. Not for Broncos country. That was an absolute butt whooping, man. I'll take that. If the Chiefs are going to be in the Super Bowl, as long as it's like that every time, I can live with it.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. It was just great on all levels. Just to see a beatdown, essentially. I mean, yeah, Mahomes and Xavier Worthy, they had some garbage time points, but I mean, this was a beatdown from the jump. And as you and I were talking about leading up to the game, I had the Eagles just because the factor is that defensive front, and you saw it on display. The ability to just constantly pressure Mahomes without blitzing. It's just, so that goes to show you how important that defensive front is. And obviously, we know Zach Bond played well, possibly a Denver Bronco next year. We'll see. Uh, and Cooper DeJean, big boy, big Iowa boy,
Mhm.
came through with a pick. But yeah, it was a good game. It was a good game. I'm happy. I'm happy for Philly. Um, but now turning to the Broncos, thank you guys for coming in. Let's see who all we have joining us tonight. We got the Papa Bear, Mr. David McElrath, coming in. Thank you, David. It's always good to see you, my guy. Says, good evening, Broncos country. Hashtag let's go Bo. And again, David, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate you, my guy, as always. All right, let's see. We got Mr. Adam Strange coming in. Thank you, Adam. Says, what's up, Bronco Maniacs? What's up with you, Adam? Hopefully, you are doing well on this lovely Saturday, my guy. It's good to see you in the chat as well. And we got Mr. Roy Osborne joining us from Facebook. Thank you, Roy. Says, good evening, Ron and Dylan. What a beat down. Loved it. Yes. Yes, Roy. I think I can speak for all of Broncos country when I say it ended in our favor. Eagles were able to stop a three-peat because Dylan, I really don't think I could have stomached a three-peat. I couldn't have. And I know a few Chiefs fans here, and I'm just like, yeah, I wouldn't have ever hear the end of it. So the fact that it didn't happen was good. Was good. But again, Roy, thank you for coming in. All right. Let's see who else we have here. And we got Mr. Ralph coming in. Ralph Race Girdle, thank you. Thank you from Facebook. We appreciate it. He says, fourth best Super Bowl ever. Okay. All right. I'm curious to know what are the ones before it. I know
Uh,
I'm probably thinking, well, the Broncos ones I'm assuming you have here. So I'm curious to know like I guess your order in which ones the Broncos have. Whether it be Super Bowl 50 or those back-to-back ones in the 90s. Because I think I don't know, those 90s ones were good too, man, Dylan. Just how Terrell Davis and just rushing through. It was good to see. But yeah, I'm curious to see how you got him ranked. But again, thank you for coming in, Ralph. We appreciate it. All right, Dylan. So now to the topic for tonight, as it pertains to free agency and who the Broncos should bring in. Now, there's much chatter out there, as it pertains to the Debo Samuel, the Cooper Cup, Chris Godwin, T. Higgins, Jawan Johnson, even Aaron Jones, from the running back position. Um, but I want to know, kind of what you're thinking in terms of out of all of those free agents, who would be the most conducive to helping Bo Nix take that next step forward?
This has kind of been my pick for a while now, and I'm going to stick with it. It's Chris Godwin for me. I absolutely love his shiftiness. He's an actual slot receiver, not just a smaller receiver who's fast, right? That's kind of a lot of people's view on what a slot receiver is, and that's not necessarily true. Uh, Chris Godwin would add another dimension to this offense, something we haven't seen. Someone who can separate and get open in a hurry, and that would greatly help Bo Nix, especially. You got guys like Cortland Sutton, who's very good, but not a great separator. Marvin Mims can get separation, but it's usually on a deep shot, down the field. You want to take some of that shorter intermediate stuff, and Chris Godwin offers that um, to this offense. And like I mentioned, you don't have that in your offense currently. I mean, Troy Franklin's still coming along. Mims is not a slot guy; he's an outside guy. There's a misconception there, I believe, and you don't have a tight end either, so you need someone to work that middle of the field. And I think Chris Godwin is the perfect fit there for the Broncos.
Yeah, that's a good selection. And he was number two on my list. I think with Chris Godwin, he does provide um big play threat ability. And does have sure hands. I like his versatility, Dylan, in the sense of he can operate in the slot, he can operate outside, um, and he can also separate as well, which I think the Broncos are lacking at the receiver position. Now, again, that's not to take away from the current receiving core that the Broncos have, because it's been very encouraging. It was an encouraging group this year, but there are those moments where you need a conversion on third down. You see the failure in some of these receivers to separate. And when you have a guy like a Chris Godwin on the roster, I think you've seen it time and time again to where as though he can do things of that nature. So I do think I do love that selection. I'm gonna say I do have two, but before I get into the two that I have, I want to remind you guys about Underdog. So now with the football season being over, basketball season is, well, it's been here a while, but now it's kind of upon us to kind of take more observation on. So this basketball season, when your favorite star scores a bucket, we're going to give you an alley oop opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? You can win with Underdog.
To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats like points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into 1,000 just with your hoops knowledge.
So download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code MHuddle. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
All right. All right. So my two um are Cooper Cup. Again, once released, I think that looks like that's kind of where that's headed. And Jawan Johnson. Um, and I think for some of the reasons that we outlined for Chris Godwin is why I would want Cooper Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So we know Cooper Cup is, I think, what age or going on age 32, I believe, but I mean, he can still play. Excellent at perimeter blocking and is a crisp and effective route runner, Dylan. And I think, the Broncos don't have that. That's a missing element in the offense for Denver. Now, you had it with Jerry Jeudy. I feel as though if Jerry Jeudy were to stay, he probably would have been Bo's favorite target.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that the fact that that route running is missing, you can see it on tape. And with that route running comes just the ability to just separate. So you see him just get open, has that knack for getting open. And I think, him and Bo Nix teaming up, I think that can take off. And kind of helps Bo see the field, a little bit better. Now, we did see Bo Nix, go through progressions, kind of fix some of the footwork. We saw that improve later in the season, this past year. But I think a receiver like Cooper Cup can really kind of help and provide some of that veteran leadership. They can connect on, certain passes, certain routes, and really help Bo take off. So that's one for me. Jawan Johnson is another. Just a few things on Jawan Johnson. Very big receiving threat that I think can help Bo Nix out, and the familiarity with the offense because he comes from the Saints. He knows Sean Payton's offense, and I think they can work well together on that communication of Payton's offense. And also, Dylan, the Broncos have been lacking at the tight end position for years now.
Yeah.
And so he can come in and just be that athletic safety blanket for both. Could just be open in the middle of the field, down the seam. So plays like that, a Jawan Johnson can definitely be of benefit.
Absolutely. And another point to just Cooper Cup and Godwin as well. They've been to Super Bowls. They've won Super Bowls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you bring that veteran experience. Obviously, Cortland Sutton's been a vet or is a vet, and he's been with the Broncos here for quite a while. But true veteran presence like Godwin, like Cup, the guys who have been there, done that, made it to the playoffs, made it further than anyone on this squad has. And just bringing that leadership, like you were mentioning, to the offense and that experience. That's something that would greatly value not just the wide receiver room, but obviously Bo Nix as well. And you mentioned Jawan Johnson. Yeah, you need that seam splitting tight end. You need someone who's going to be a security blanket. I mean, Javonte Williams was the freaking security blanket for most of the year, right? And you just can't have that, and unless you're more of a dynamic running back, which he's absolutely not. But yeah, I mean, all three of those guys that we mentioned, I would happily, like, if we could get one of them, it probably, you could maybe probably get like one of those receivers and then Juwan as well. But I mean, if you could even just get one of those guys, that's going to add a dimension to this offense that we just don't have currently.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, guys, we're talking about just kind of the bigger free agent names, but even some of the mid tier ones still in. I know Darius Slayton is rumored, Brandon Cooks as well. So there are a few mid tier guys that have been in the league for quite some time that can contribute. Obviously they don't have the flashy headlines. Brandon Cooks is a little long in the tooth, but I do think they can come and provide some value, um, and help Bo out for sure. Uh, let's see who else we have here in the chat. We got David Valdez coming in from Facebook. Thank you, David. It's always good to see you. He says, "What about Gainwell from Philly or back up to Derek Henry Hill?" Um, yeah, I think I wouldn't mind Gainwell. Um, I've seen him come in. I think a few plays even in the Super Bowl and in the NFC Championship game. I think he would be a good, solid vet for the running back room in Denver. I wouldn't mind him as much. Hill, Hill would be okay. I'm just not sure. I don't know too
Kind
much
of already
about
have
Hill.
Jaleel, you know. He
Yeah,
fits a similar mold. Justice Hill's kind of fits that similar mold.
yeah. That's kind of where my head was. Of looks like he kind of fits the mold of someone already on the roster, like a Jaleel slash Blake in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Gainwell kind of provides you more of that. I guess more the running style is a little different with that pass catching upside. At least for Gainwell. So I would like to have Gainwell if that's a possibility. I know um, Aaron Jones is another one that was floated potentially. But he's also a little older. But I would say yeah, Aaron Jones, maybe Kenneth Gainwell, and also Rico Dowdle would be a few names to consider.
Yeah, and I think Sean Payton's going to want to add a veteran back to this room. I mean, you got Jaleel, he's been here a few years. Estime was a rookie who didn't get a lot of opportunities, and they're going to get someone in the draft. They absolutely
Yeah.
have to, and I can't see them coming out of this draft without one, or maybe even two. But it would be nice again to get that veteran experience to the running back room as well. Someone who's like Aaron Jones, he's been very solid for a while there with the Vikings and the Packers. Just looking through some other names. I mean, not a whole lot. I mean, you maybe seen Alexander Madison, some smaller
Mhm.
names, but just a veteran presence to have. But there's nothing too sexy out there. No one I would really spend a whole lot to go and get.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, expect them. They again they'll get that veteran, but look for this to be a point of emphasis in the draft, and more likely they'll double up at the position in the draft, um, just because it's a glaring need on the roster. But good question. Thank you for coming in with that. Let's see who else we have. We got Geo Vandermark coming in. Thank you, Geo. It's always good to see you. Says making my comeback to Rushmore. I believe we will rule the West next year. The so-called dynasty is over. Yes, Geo. Thank you for coming in, and we're gonna be, according to Peyton, we're gonna be a problem next year, Dylan. The Broncos are going to be a problem. You saw some of that this past season with which is how the roster was. It wasn't even a roster up to its full potential yet. So just imagine, once you add more pieces to the roster, Bull getting, going to a second year. And, as you mentioned here, Gio, you saw slippage of Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and kind of how the Philadelphia Eagles have provided a little bit of that blueprint on how to stop it. And the Broncos do have some of the makings of that on defense. Now, they can be a little bit better at inside linebacker, safety, are two positions of need. But, you know, we'll see what they do with DJ Jones, Dylan. But, the defensive front, I would say is, you know, not Phillies, but, I think they can they can cause some noise, and you saw that this year. But we'll see.
Absolutely, and thank you for hopping in, Gio. And we will see you back on that Super Chat Superstar Mount Rushmore soon. I have no doubt about it. Um, but yeah, I actually just put up an article recently about 3 big factors in the Broncos overtaking the Chiefs, right? And one of them is, like we just mentioned, we're gonna get some offensive weapons around Bo Nix. The Chiefs have lots of key free agents, including like Nick Bolton, Trey
Mhm.
Smith, guys like that. Kelsey might retire, and defensive continuity is a big thing as well. I like you mentioned, there's the inside linebacker position is pretty weak. Barton and Sternat are both free agents. I think you could get an upgrade there easily.
For sure.
I mean, it's not going to be too hard to replace them. Um, but yeah, the defense, especially the defensive continuity. You got Vance coming back for another year. You're bringing back pretty much everyone, right? But you do need to upgrade safety as well, linebacker. But if you shore up those spots, I mean, there's no reason this team can't be top 5 once again. Like, defenses are volatile year to year. I would like to see some more bodies added to the defensive line because, you know, as fun as it is to see a safety or a corner or a linebacker coming in on a blitz, I would prefer to get home with 4, and that's been a philosophy that the Eagles use. You saw how well that worked for them. You can rush 4 and then drop 7 into freaking
Mhm.
coverage, and that's what kills Patrick Mahomes. So
Mhm.
that philosophy is something the Broncos, I'm sure, will be investing in the near future.
Yeah, for sure. It was again, it's such a great thing when you can rush the 4 and they can get consistent pressure because it allows you to do so much, on the back end. Zach Bond, Cooper DeJean, just how they can be just in the field tackling, awareness, able to catch it. So I just think it's imperative that they throw more bodies at the defensive line. I think again you see that um, with Philly, and if you can just add to that position group, um, I think it'll be good for the Broncos. But again, Gio, thank you for coming in. With that, we appreciate you. And then we got David coming back in. Thank you, David. It says, who's likely Denver is going to pick up in the offseason running back and or wide receiver? Who do you really think we have a good chance of getting? Yeah, I think running back, you're probably looking at Aaron Jones, Rico Dowdle. You mentioned Gainwell. I think those are um, 3 potential ones, at least from a free agency perspective. Um, Draft, I'm thinking if Genty's there at 20, they take him. If not, they wait until round 2, maybe pick up a Travion Henderson, and or if not that, later on maybe a Devin Neal. That's how I see the running back position going, or at least the outlook of the running back position, David. For wide receivers, I'm a free agent. I'm thinking more. I'm thinking more like a Cooper Cup potentially, or a Darius Slayton perhaps. Again, with Cooper Cup, as we mentioned near the top of the show, he can provide you um, some of that veteran experience, that leadership, that route running. Um, and then in the draft, they probably wait later on for a receiver, Dylan. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, if they go with Bo Nix's brother. Um, that seems to be kind of the obvious choice. So maybe look for a Tez Johnson. I do like Restrepo. I do like Trey Harris as well. Um, but I just don't see receiver as a huge priority. Again, still a need, just not a huge priority. It's not a must, according to what Peyton said with K Adams. Um, So yeah, that's kind of how I see it going, David.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll just go off with wide receiver since you ended there. Um, it's hard for me to see them taking one in the first round. Like I'm a big Emeka Buka guy, but I don't think they're really going to go that way unless Peyton absolutely falls in love with him, right? And the only other wide receiver I could see them taking in the first round is if for some reason Tedero McMillan falls. But other than that, yeah, I think you're kind of just looking at free agency and maybe in later rounds, like you mentioned Restrepo. That's it. I'm very big on him as well. But the Darius Slaytons that are out there. I know a lot of people want T. Higgins. I'm just gonna let you guys know that's not happening. Like
Mm,
I'll say that with my chest. Like I just
no.
I just don't see that. Um so yeah, I would probably look more towards the draft and then like one of these lower end mid range free agents. In terms of running back, you mentioned Travion Henderson. I think that's probably Sean Payton's dream
That's probably the
running
guy.
back.
Yeah.
He can block, he can catch, he can run. He's got that burst, that speed. Now it's obviously going to come down to here in a couple weeks the medicals at the
Hmm.
combine. That's going to be a big thing for him. But I could see a scenario where in the first round, the Broncos, maybe a Tyler Warren, Genty, they don't fall to him. No one they love falls to him. You stick at 20, you go BPA, and then once you get to that second round, similar what they did with Javonte Williams, you go trade up and get that running back, that tight end, whatever. I think that could be the plan for them, especially for Trevion Henderson, because this is a good running back class. But you still want to get one of those higher end guys, right? And I think, like I just mentioned, barring the medicals, I think Trevion Henderson is the perfect fit for this
Hmm.
offense and Sean Payton.
Yeah, I think don't I think anybody from Ohio State's a perfect fit for this offense. Just because I mean they run a pro style offense. A lot of their players on offense they block. They block and they can they can do damage when the ball is in their hands. And that's what Sean Payton wants. I mean, you look at a guy like Emeka Ibuka. You saw him in that national championship game just getting dirty with his hands, just blocking. Same with, as you mentioned, with Travion Henderson, Quinshaw Judkins, the same. So um, again, I do think at least I think I said at one show at least two Ohio State players, but I know at minimum one for sure is going to be selected for Denver just because they do things very well. Um, but again, David, thank you for coming in with that question. And we got Ralph coming back in from Facebook. Thank you, Ralph. He's saying, I think they're already ranked. Oh, the order of the Super Bowls that he had. Okay, 32, 33, and then 50. Although the 50 probably had the best defense. First one, it was the first one. And then the 33 was so much fun to watch. Yep, Terrell Davis. Yep, okay, yep. I agree with you. I think the way they have them ranked is probably how I would rank them as well. So uh, thank you. Let's see who we have here in the chat. Um, got Adam Strange coming in again. Thank you, Adam. He says, "What about that super linebacker from Philadelphia?" Dylan, thoughts on Zach Bond coming to the Denver Broncos?
I would absolutely love to have Zach Bond on this defense, especially with just how abysmal that core was with once Alex Singleton went down in week 3. Sternad looked decent those first couple weeks out, and then Cody Barton, from what I heard, was about to get benched before that Saints game. Just a lot of a few splash plays here and there, but overall pretty terrible linebacking core. So to have an absolute beast like Zach Bond, who maybe some people are a little more cautious on just because it is a Fangio defense and he does put his linebackers in a great position, but he still goes and makes those plays. He makes those run stops. He picks off Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and he's very versatile. I would absolutely love to have him on this team. There's other guys out there like Dre Greenlaw, who would be awesome to have. Maybe you poach a Nick Bolton from the Kansas City Chiefs, but
Mm-hmm.
as of right now, I think Zach Bond's probably the top option there when it comes to free agency.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Zach Bond. I would love him in Denver. I just I just don't know what that price point is going to be, Dylan, because he did play himself into a pretty hefty penny there when it comes to that contract. Um, but overpaying a little, for a player who's done well this year, I guess I wouldn't mind it. But you just kind of got this one big year out of him, and as you mentioned, right,
Mhm.
in Vangio's defense, two positions do shine usually, and that is inside linebacker and safety.
Especially with that defensive line in front of him too.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the two positions that shine in a Vangio-led scheme. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't mind it, but I would say Adam, my three, and Bond is in my three, but I think I want uh, Greenlaw, and Bolton. I think would even be above Bond. Just because I think you can get them. I'm only looking at it from a financial perspective. I think you can get them a little cheaper um, than a Zach Bond. But again, if Zach Bond is the one that comes, I'm over the moon. Um, I like Dre Greenlaw's aggressive nature, Dylan. Just how he just comes up and just makes every tackle great, excellent in coverage. Um, and it was just so unfortunate uh, when he was running on the field last year, um, and that injury happened. It was just so sad to see. But even now, him coming off the injury, he may not cost that much, right? So that might be something that the Broncos consider when they try to play ball from a contract perspective. But yeah, Adam, if Bond is the one that they choose in free agency, I'm down for it. But I also like Bolton and I also like Greenlaw. All righty. Let's see here. What else we have in the chat? And again, what about center and free agency? Thoughts on this one, Dylan?
Here, like I'm looking at the list right now. You got Ryan Kelly from the Colts, Austin Corbett. Trying to find some other names here that pop out, but nothing's really coming to me. I mean, maybe you get one of those guys for depth. I don't know because Wanberg's fine, right? But if we want to find a weak link on this offensive line, it would definitely be center. I would prefer probably to go to the draft for that. Admittedly, I'm not as brushed up on the interior of the offensive line for this year's draft, but center especially. But yeah, just looking at free agents, nothing too hot out there. Nothing I would be willing to spend much money on. That is.
Yeah, I don't really consider center as like a huge need. Um, yeah, I mean, can you upgrade on Wattenberg? Sure. I mean, but I don't think his play maybe depth. I guess that might be how you look at this. Yeah, then maybe you can use a body of depth. I maybe see them going into the draft for that, maybe doing something, in a later round. But I think in free agency, I don't think that's gonna happen, Adam. I think they may look for depth from a center position in the draft. Again, I think free agency is designed to just fill the voids with the immediate needs. So as you see with Denver, immediate need running back, tight end, inside linebacker, safety. So look at them kind of filling those voids, and then kind of going from BPA in the draft to, you know, um, to some of the positional value players in depth as well. But good question. Thank you for coming in with that. All right, let's see who else we have. I just want to do a quick time check here. Oh, we got about 35 minutes in, so we got a little more time. All right, let's see. Let's see. All right, Cornelis LW, new name for me, but thank you for coming in. Says, I just hope they get inside linebacker and safety, then draft running back and tight end, and maybe get an older, cheaper, proven wide. Exactly, exactly, Cornelis. And this is my philosophy as well. Um, again, Dylan, if the free agency goes, Zach Bond, Javon Holland, and then again, Cornelis, just for purposes of this conversation, they get like Rico Dotto and Jawan Johnson. I think we the Broncos can live with that. And then um, you know, uh drafting tight ends. If Colston Loveland is there, if Tyler Warren's there at 20. And even later on, you know, Elijah Arroyo, who's actually becoming one of my favorite tight ends in this draft. Like I think Dylan, he's probably right after the top two. I think that's where he is for me now. And I got to look at Mel Kiper's big board. I would imagine he's risen a lot as well after the Senior Bowl. Um, but anyway, but yeah, I do think that's probably the path. Croneless now again, proven wide receiver. Yeah, but again, don't look for any splashy names. Um, again, I guess Cup, if he's released, that might, I guess you can consider that splash, but um, look for those mid tier guys. And Dylan, I'm not a fan of Debo Samuel coming to Denver. I'm just not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. Um, I've thought a lot about it, and I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. Now, Debo does provide, some things to his game, like the yards after catch and the yards after contact. But as you see what they've done with Mims, there's a lot of similarities there. And so you don't need anybody like a Debo. You need someone who can be a slot and be like an elite separator at the receiver position.
Yeah, completely out on Devo. I mean, he's not putting up stats, but he's putting up cheeseburgers to his mouth. He showed up. I
Yeah,
think
he's
it was,
weight.
I believe it was 20 pounds overweight this
Yeah,
season.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm good, older, banged up. Like you mentioned, he's fulfills the same or similar role to Marvin Mims, who's younger, quicker, and yeah, doesn't show up overweight. But when you talk about Kronos here, thank you for coming in, talking about inside linebacker safety. Yeah, we talked about inside linebacker quite a bit. Obviously, there's some safety options that are out there. Justin Reed of the Chiefs is going to be a free agent. You got guys like Ashton Davis from the Jets, who's kind of an underrated option there if they don't want to spend too big. You mentioned Javon Holland, that would be the big ticket item there. Trevon Hufanga, he's also a good option there. We'll see what San Francisco wants to do because they're set to lose Greenlaw and Hufanga, which would be a big blow to their defense there, especially even with Saleh coming back. That would be pretty rough from them. Yeah, and then obviously you want to add pieces as much as you can in free agency so you can be a little freer in the draft. But I would have to agree. You have to go out and get a running back and tight end. You mentioned Arroyo. I'm a big fan of his as well. That might be like how I mentioned earlier. Maybe you stay pat at 20, and then where you trade up is that second round. Now, would it be for an Arroyo, a Travion Henderson, other tight ends like a Mason Taylor who's been climbing up boards, maybe a Gunnar Helm. There's plenty of options there. One name I do want to bring up, and it's going to be talked about a lot, not draft, but free agency wise. Do not bring Taysom Hill to Denver. I mean, obviously it's fun, and people hear Joker and they're like, "Oh, it's obviously got to be Taysom Hill, right?" The dude is going to be, I believe,
34.
35 by the time the next season starts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, full stop on that. Plenty of tread on his tires. He doesn't really fit the need at tight end, even so. Yeah, fully out on Taysom Hill because I just want to get out in front of that and say, "Nah, I'm good."
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. The first thing I the first thing I thought when I saw the news, I was like, Sean Payton's going to get him. I don't want him to, but it just makes too much sense. But you're right. I mean, because he just came off an injury last year himself, didn't he? Was it like an ACL or something he had?
I believe so.
And so it's just like, yeah, you can't. No, go ahead and get you're a young Joker in the draft. You don't need a Hill. I mean, um, but yeah. But Chronolist, this is definitely the approach. I think the Broncos should take, and I think that's what they will take um, to help build this roster. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. Let's see. Looking at the chat here. Um, String guy saying I would move up for Genty. Would you do that, Dylan? I mean, would you move up for Ashton Genty?
So there's a few draft nicks out there, like I believe it was Dane Brugler. If it wasn't,
Yeah.
someone will correct me. Due to positional value, maybe you do see a Genty fall. Maybe you do see a Tyler Warren fall. People sometimes get weird like that, or teams kind of overthink it, right? I think if the Broncos were to trade up, let's say for some reason, I guess the Cowboys are like, nah, we don't want a running back. I could see maybe not even just for Genty specifically, but I think for a trade up for the Broncos, I think 15 with the Falcons, they have, if I'm remembering correctly, they only have 4 or 5 picks in this
4
draft.
picks.
So yeah, 4 picks. So I think they'll be looking to move down. If there was ever a spot to trade up, I think it would probably be 15. Maybe a Tyler Warren falls, maybe a Genty falls. I think if Peyton's in love with either of those guys, he'll go up and get them. Personally, I wouldn't hate it, honestly. Like, it's similar to Bo Nix, right? Obviously, not the same level of importance at positionally, but Genty adds a dimension to this offense that the Broncos don't have, similar to slot receiver, but I would say much more impactful. There was absolutely no run game for this team last year unless you were putting it on Bo Nix's back, right? Javonte sucked. SMA didn't get many opportunities. Same with Julio. Um, Tyler Bede got hurt. And they were just, it's not like this offensive line is terrible at run blocking. They just don't have the guy back there who's going to get the job done, who's going to grind away a game and beat down a defense. So in the second half, you can really put the game away. Broncos haven't had that for quite a while now. And if they think Genty's worth that and say he falls around that 14, 15 range, I'm definitely making a call and seeing, hey, what's going to cost to get up there?
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think if it's anywhere between 14 to 17 picks 14 to 17, then that's probably where you go and um try to look at making a move up. Um because again, you just need some offensive weapons. I know the talk is, and I've kind of been a proponent as well, Dylan, of the positional value. If Malachi Starks is there, he's the best at that position. You take him. Even interior defensive line, which I think this class is kind of stacked
Loaded.
at that position group. Um, but yeah, I just think Ashton, that you just changes your offense, you know, instantaneously. And so if you can get a guy that caliber and just move up a few spots, with Atlanta, in a trade back, I think that'll be good. Um, It just really depends on how the board falls for me, string guy. Um, and you're right. You might see that run on offensive linemen, come on, even some of the edges, right? You might see a little bit of a run in the teams on some of those positions, and that can bump Genty down. Um, so yeah, I just really think it depends, but it just really depends on how the board falls, um, for sure. But yeah, if Genty's in striking distance, string, I'll put it that way. I do think the Broncos need to definitely try to see what they can do, with another team, to make a move up. All right. Thank you, String Guy. Then we got Gene William coming in from Facebook. Says, I want Cam Scattaboo. Probably not how you spell it, but he's a beast. It's okay, Gene. We understand where you're coming from. Yeah, Scattaboo is he's an interesting player, Dylan. I like his game. I really do. Just how he can break tackles. Kind of, the bowling ball, if you will. I kind of see him as more of a bowling ball type of back, just kind of running all over people. I've seen a few plays where he can throw it too, so he could be a little bit of
Mhm.
Sean Payton's Joker, if you will. Um, yeah, I guess, Gene, it depends on, you know if he does fall. I think with him, he's probably, ooh, round 3, Dylan, perhaps, is probably where you talk about him going. Because I know the hype is out there just because of, you know the story, how he plays, but I think there are a lot of other backs before him. Obviously outside Ashton Genty, Marion Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, even, Quinshawn Judkins, Dylan Sampson, to name a few. Um, that'll probably go before him, but yeah, I think if the Broncos are interested, Gene, you might, if he's still there, maybe round 3 or something. They might take a flyer. But yeah, I like him. I like the kid.
Yeah, I do as well. You mentioned that bowling ball running style and how guys just kind of glide off him sometimes, or he runs through them. It reminds me of, and not an exact comparison, but C.J. Anderson when he was with
Yeah.
the Broncos. People he would just bowl right through him, or they just glide right off him, and that would be awesome to have. And like you mentioned, he's versatile. He can catch, he can throw when needed. Um, I agree with you, and he probably goes third round. You could maybe see second, just because I think there's a few teams at the top there who are going to take running backs, and then you could see a run on running backs, right? O'Marion
Mhm.
Hampton, Dylan Sampson, like you mentioned, Caleb Johnson, the 2 Ohio State guys. It just kind of depends. That's that second round, right? That's where we see a lot of running backs go these days. You don't get a whole lot going in the first round. You might see a team be brave enough, hey, at the end of the first round, that either they trade up, or a team that's there says, hey, we can use a guy like an Omarion Hampton or a Caleb Johnson. So I think you'd be a great fit on this team, Scattaboo.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, I'm sure Sean could see the versatility in him and use him if he does really like him.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Yeah, thank you, Gene. And String Guy comes back and says, Genty reminds me of TD. He just bounces off tacklers. Yeah. And also, another thing, Dylan, is what I've noticed is the home run ability. That's a big thing. Like, someone that could be a Saquon or a Derrick Henry. You give them the ball, and again, you may not think they can go, but they have the potential to hit their head on the goalpost. And Genty is that guy. Travion Henderson is that guy too.
Mm-hmm.
So again, having that on the Broncos, that's what the Broncos have been missing for so long. Just that home run ability from the running back group. And to have a guy like that, I just think would be so great for, this Broncos offense. Now, again, I only see those two. There could be others in the draft. I need to go back and look at some film, but definitely Travion and Ashton are the ones that you give them the ball, it could be a house call. It could be a house call. So
Oh yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you there, and that's what they need. They need a home run threat on offense in general, but if they can get it running back, that's great. Especially I mentioned earlier, you wear defense down, you get to that second half, you're breaking away for touchdowns. Except with Genty, he could do it in the first freaking touch of the game.
yeah,
I mean, especially behind this offensive line, they're a great offensive line. They're a great run blocking unit. You just don't have that dog back there, and Genty would absolutely be that.
yeah. 3rd and 3 to close out a game. Sure. Genty.
Exactly.
You see it all the time with Henry and Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. A few more guys. I did see the Amarion Hampton. I like Amarion Hampton as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I don't know for Denver though. I mean, at least the way Sean has been talking, I see him more as a bell cow back. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Genty is that way too, to a degree. Um, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos get him. Depending on how the board falls at him. And I think Peyton can really you know use him, integrate him in kind of the way he wants to in his offense. But Amarion Hampton can do just about everything well. Um, you know, Good blocker, smooth, slithery and smooth in between the tackles, can catch. Um, Kind of reminds me of a DeMarco Murray.
Okay, I like that.
He reminds me of DeMarco Murray. Just that smooth glide and running style. But yeah, if that's the pick, Adam, I'm okay with it. Now, again, where they pick him, I'm just not sure. It really depends on how the bowl falls. They may stay right there and pick a running back at 20. I would want them to kind of trade back a few spots, pick up, an extra pick or so, and see if you can snag them. But I like the prospect.
Yeah, Hampton would be great in this offense, like you mentioned. He has that gliding kind of running style, but he could also run through you. Like it's going to be hard to miss on a running back in this class. I mean, there's so many options, so many flavors, shapes, sizes. So, and the Broncos need all of it. Let's be honest. I mean, you got Jaleel and you got Audric, but they're not going to stop Sean Payton from drafting another guy that he likes or another two guys that he likes. So Hampton would be a very welcome addition to this team. And like I said, going to be really hard to miss on a running back in this class, especially you can put anyone, well, I don't want to say anyone, but behind this offensive line, because we saw not just anyone could be back there, apparently. But yeah, it's going to be hard to miss on someone here.
Yes, for sure. And then Mike has a few different combos here. How's these first two pick combos? Loveland Henderson or Genty Arroyo or Warren Caleb. Anyway you cut it, we're in a great spot this draft, but may need to move up a few spots in the second round. Yeah, I think out of these combos, I like all three combos, by the way, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think I would lean more toward the Genty Arroyo combo.
Mm-hmm.
And then Loveland and Henderson second. So, but yeah, like you said, anywhere you put it, um, great prospects, in the draft. Again, definitely second round, as I mentioned, you can get the running back, some tight ends, good second round. Depending on how the bowl falls, yeah, you may need to, move up in that second round to snag your guy. But yeah, lots of different great prospects.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think just in terms of value, you'd have to go Genty Arroyo, right? Like you're getting the best running back in the class, and then Arroyo has been a rising star, and he's probably a top of the second round kind of guy.
Mhm.
And you add a bruising run game, right? And then add in a fluid tight end who's going to get open, who's going to be a threat in the red zone, and a security blanket for your quarterback. But you could say that about all these guys, right? You mentioned they're all great options, but yeah, for me, it's got to be Genty and Arroyo there.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Thank you, Mike, for coming in with those combinations. Great combinations. All righty. Um, let's see. Looking, doing, doing. Okay, looks like yeah, we're Running out on time here, guys. Let's just kind of look through the chat to see if there are any other questions, comments that were missed. I see Adam talking about Fannin. Yep. I mean, I like Fannin. Again, I think for me, there are other. Um, I think they're better tight ends, Adam, in my opinion. But Fannin does things well. Um, he's a good pass catcher. He can block. I mean, you can even line him up at fullback. So there I can see utility for him for sure. Um, and Peyton's offense. I just think we mentioned some of these other ones that we saw at the Senior Bowl and kind of how that draft stock is rising, like Arroyo, Mason Taylor, right? I think those are some other ones that you know that again their stock is rising. But I mean I like Fannin and wouldn't be I just wouldn't be mad at the pick. I just think they're um, better ones, at least from my evaluation, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I'd be interested in him in terms of that like H back role. Like you mentioned, kind of like fullback H back role. He's not an amazing blocker. I mean, either like Loveland isn't like known for his blocking either, but I think he's a little better there than Fannin. And at that point, I'd probably just take a wide receiver that I
Yeah.
like better, because there's like 6 or 7 tight ends I like more than him. Not that he wouldn't be a welcome addition, but there's guys I would much rather have over Fannin, but definitely an option.
Yeah. Yep, Mike, thanks for calling us out. Yep, I saw that Denver did talk with Fannin at the Senior Bowl. And I know that was one thing, Dylan, you mentioned the blocking, and I think it was either Cecil or Mace. I think that was one of the things they were looking for, and I think they said that kind of improved a bit throughout the Senior Bowl, because that was one of the knocks on him, that the blocking just wasn't up to par, but we saw improvement. But again, we'll see how it goes, guys. Got the NFL Combine coming up, and we got pro days and all that good jazz with these prospects. So a lot can change still when we're talking in the middle of February. All right, guys. Well, again, that concludes our show for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. It's always good to talk Broncos football with you. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, Mile High Huddle. Like, subscribe, and share, that is. And if you have not done so already, make sure you follow the both of us on X. I am at Ron White NFL, and my partner crime here is at Dylan Von Arts MHH. Before we get out of here, Dylan has a few people to thank that heard us in the chat tonight, and I will turn it over to him.
Yeah, thanks everyone for hopping in tonight. We were capping out at 150 plus viewers, and that's absolutely insane for a Saturday, especially in the off season. It's great that you guys still hop in and chop it up about the draft and the season and whatnot, and we just really appreciate it. But I want to give a little extra love to our super chat superstars for tonight. David Papa Bear McGillrath coming in as he always does to start us off. Ralph, thank you for coming in as well. Gio Vandermark, you're gonna get back up on that Mount Rushmore, man. You keep hopping in here. We'll make sure you get
Make
there.
sure you're on there.
Ralph coming in for a second time. Really appreciate you, Ralph. And Gene William, thank you guys so much for hopping in and giving us a little extra love. Without you guys, we wouldn't be doing this, man. And it's just a dream for us to come in here and chop it up and talk with all of y'all.
Yep, definitely. Again, guys, thank you all for tuning in tonight. We greatly appreciate it. And hopefully you have a great week ahead. And we will talk to you guys next time. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.